Every trend gets broken eventually, right? It's just the way trends work, or their streaks, or whatever the case may be. Nothing lasts forever. I've spent a lot of time the last, pretty much the entire college football season, telling you that Michigan is good for one game a year where they beat themselves due to poor play, arrogant play calling, whatever the case may be. And it looked like that was primed and ready to be the case in the Rose Bowl. Get a muff punt for a touchdown, you nearly muff another punt that you catch at the 1 yard line, have to shove your way out of, calling a flea flicker on 2nd and 10 when you had Alabama's back to the wall, and ended up being punting and giving them the ball back. It just was prime Michigan screw up time, and they won. They bucked that trend for that game. Can they buck the trend in the national championship game tonight and make sure that they don't have that in their back pocket, that they don't have that once a year screw up that they have continually had under Jim Harbaugh? I think so. On the flip side of the matchup, Washington is trying to buck a trend too. Every time this year that there was an even remote possibility that they were going to lose or could lose, that it was going to be a even competitive game, there were many people who predicted Washington to lose, that they were not as good as advertised, that they weren't one of the 4 best teams in the country, didn't deserve to be here. And each time they were going to set to play Oregon, it's going to be, hey, this is the time they're going to lose. Give me the Ducks. And each time, Washington won. So if streaks are meant to be broken, if trends are meant to be snapped, which one of them happens tonight? Because I don't think anybody's picking Washington to win tonight. I don't think many people are saying that it's the Huskies' title to lose. I think the overwhelming majority of people are picking Michigan to win the title. And whether that's fair or not, whether that's right or wrong, we'll find out later this evening. But that's the consensus, is that it's Michigan's title to lose. Now, my argument is when you have a history of losing things that should be yours, then I have questions. But that's what it ultimately comes down to. Which trend is going to be broken? Which streak is going to be snapped? Each time Washington has been told you're going to lose, they haven't. Each year Michigan is good for one game where they beat themselves, and they haven't yet. And I don't know that I foresee it happening tonight either. I think Washington can outscore Michigan if it gets into a shootout. But I don't know how comfortable I would be getting into a shootout, because I don't know that I would want to be in one of those games where the first one to make a big mistake loses. And I'm not talking about, the whole you went for it on 4th and 2 and didn't get it, or it's a ill-opportune interception thrown, or a catch and run that turns into a fumble, or a muff punt, or whatever the case may be. The first big mistake, the first time somebody makes a mistake, a point-costing mistake, and the game turns, I don't know that I would want to be in that position if I was Washington. Michigan proved that it can get after the quarterback on anybody against the Rose Bowl, in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. Now, Michael Penix Jr. isn't the athlete that Jalen Milroe is. I think Jalen Milroe, some of the sacks come from a little bit of inexperience, holding on to the ball a little bit too much. Michael Penix Jr. is not going to be able to run his way necessarily out of harm's way. So I wonder how that matchup comes into play. It should be, could be, and I think will be an interesting one. But when push comes to shove, I think Michigan is able to push around on the offensive line darn near everybody in America, or anybody in America that they have to / want to. I think that's the case, is that they can run the football with anybody on anybody that's on the schedule. And then if that's successful, you can do all of the things you want to do after that. Play action passes, take deep shots downfield, take 5 to 7 step drops, and throw the football efficiently and effectively like J.J. McCarthy has done. And I think that's the difference, that when you want to do what you want to do, it's more likely that Michigan is successful in that area than Washington, in my eyes. I don't know that the Huskies match up great with Michigan. I think Alabama did match up pretty well with Michigan. On the defensive side of the ball for the Wolverines, I don't know what the game plan. I don't have a great feel of, because it really, do you just say we're going to make sure this one wide receiver doesn't beat us, and if somebody else does, like, congratulations, way to go? I don't know. I think the idea is probably we're going to get after Michael Penix Jr. and force him to throw the football pretty quickly. I don't know if that's playing into his hand or not. I don't know if basically saying this guy who, I mean, yesterday I told you I think deserves a whole heck of a lot of praise for his performance in his college football career. Like, we're going to make that guy beat us. Because by blitzing Michael Penix Jr., that's kind of what you're doing. If you drop 7 or 8 guys in coverage every play, you are basically telling those wide receivers and those running backs to beat you. If you're going to blitz Michael Penix Jr., you're saying, I dare you, quarterback who led Indiana to a top 10 ranking and has now led Washington to the national title game, to beat us. And I think that's a bad idea, because I think you're putting the ball in the hands of the one guy who can beat you. So it's an interesting matchup. It's an interesting way to look and think about it, because ultimately, do I want Roma Dunzier to beat us, or do I want Michael Penix Jr. to beat us? It's a pretty easy decision to me. But I think the way Michigan wants to play offense dictates the entire game. If they can run the football the way they want to run the football, you can then play defense the way you want to play defense. You can then operate your offense in the exact manner that you want. You can then say, I want to play action pass. I want to take shots down the field. I want to grind Washington down and then mix in the get rich quick play action pass, 2-play 75-yard touchdown drives, and open up a can. That's how I think Michigan wants to play. They want to play we're going to grind you down, and then once you're beat, that snowball's coming downhill at you fast. There's nothing you can do to stop it. The longer you let Washington hang around, I think the less ideal that situation is for Michigan. I think they want to get that taken care of quickly. And it goes back to the Rose Bowl a little bit, where I talked about it after the kind of the Rose Bowl recap, so to speak, that the overwhelming sentiment at halftime of that game was Michigan has dominated this game, and they were leading by 3. So if you feel like you've dominated the game and you're leading by 3, that's not a great place to be. Like, that is not at all where you'd want to be if everybody, but like if Alabama believes we got our asses kicked in that half and we're trailing by 3, that's a good place for them to be. And so I think Michigan is thinking about that coming into the game of like, hey, listen, if we're going to step on somebody's neck, we got to step on their neck. We got to get out and take care of business when we have those opportunities, because they could have put Alabama away before it ever got close to overtime. Could have happened, and they did not do it. They didn't finish the job. Now, they ultimately did, but in these high leverage games, high pressure situations, you don't get a ton of opportunities to reroute and do it again. Like, okay, we didn't close them out when we could have, but just generally doesn't happen. So you have to take advantage of that in the national championship game. And I think once you've kind of had that experience of like, here's what happens when you don't do it, you make sure it does happen when you get that opportunity a second time. So there are two trends. Washington bucking the trend of every time people think they're going to lose, they don't, or Michigan going in an undefeated season. And what the repercussions of that are going to be wide-ranging, and we'll talk about this week. But it's a somewhat fascinating national championship game, and I hate the fact that it's on a Monday. There's no talk about it today. Nobody's like over the moon excited that tonight's a national championship game. The NFL playoff order being set yesterday, is garnering more talk than the national title game. I don't like that. I think for a sport that plays its entire season on one day to then come back like, hey, the most important game, by the way, is a date you will never associate with college football. Cool. I think stinks. But that's the hand that's dealt. That's what's happening tonight. National title game. I think when push comes to shove, Michigan is too much. Now, again, I was wrong in the semifinals. I thought we would get a Texas-Alabama title game, and here we are with Michigan-Washington. So take that with a grain of salt. I don't think it's a super high-scoring game. I'm going to go like Michigan 31, Washington 20. I don't know that it's ever really in doubt. Michigan's comfortable, but Washington's going to put up a hell of a fight. So 31-20 is my final score prediction. We'll come back tomorrow, see how we did. I think Michael Penix Jr. is still going to perform pretty well. I think Blake Corum probably rushes for 140 yards on 20-some-odd carries, 2 touchdowns. Michigan doesn't rely on J.J. McCarthy to go out and win the game. I don't know that Washington puts them in a position where, like, J.J., it's in your hands. You got to go get us a title. I don't think it ever gets that point. So 31-20, Michigan the win is my official college football playoff national championship game prediction. We'll see how we did tomorrow. We'll recap the entire thing and look at how a title was won on Monday night. I'll look forward to chatting with you then. This has been today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're watching here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all that great college football content we're pumping out here on Saturday Glory. And if you are listening on a podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. Recapping the title game tomorrow right here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.